Yeah, hello everyone. So in previous class, uh, we are discussed about inserting data with the help of uh, JPA and MySQL, right? So Spring Boot JPA with MySQL. So we have created, I think, two APIs, right? So find employee and create employee. So let me test those two APIs. Let me start the server. So on top of the Eclipse, you can see there is icon, right? So you can click on that. So your server will start successfully. So now, so whenever you restart the server, who will create the employee table? Employee table is created by JPA. So depends on the properties file which we have configured, right? So you can see application.properties. So we have given spring.jpa.hibernate.ddl-auto. So the moment you have add this property in application.properties file, so new table is being created in your database. So let me open the database. So SQL client I'm opening. If you see employee database, there is a table created. You can see employee table is created, right? So now, so before testing this application, so in background, right? So the moment you start the server in background, so table is being created, right? So if you want to see the table, whether it is a house JPA is going to create, so what you need to do, you have to enable the property, right? So let me stop the server. So which property you have to enable? Spring dot jpa dot show hyphen SQL property equal true. Spring dot jpa dot show hyphen SQL. So the moment you add this property, so whenever you start the server, you can see table is created in database. So and the statement which is generated by JPA, so create statement you can see, right? So let you can see here. Are you able to see my screen? So the moment you start the server, so table SQL statement to create the table, it is generated by JPA. So internally, JPA is created this SQL query. So this statement is not in a visible format, right? So it is one line of statement. It is not able to, we can't able to read properly. So what we can do, we can format this generated SQL also. So how we can format? So there is a in Hibernate there is a property called. So let me write it here. You have to add this property in application.properties to format the generated SQL in console. Okay, Spring dot JPA dot properties dot Hibernate dot format underscore SQL equal true. So the moment you let me clear the console. The moment you enable this property, whenever you restart the server, so the JPI will generate your table, right? So the table structure will be proper structure is being displayed in the console, so you can read properly. So let me save this file. So the moment you save this file, server will restart automatically. You can see now, see how it is generated now. So this is the this is the structure. You can easily read this structure, right? So create a table employee. So now you can able to read properly the generated SQL by JPA. So you can see, so what create will what create uh, value will perform. So this property, whenever you are giving value as create, then the moment you start the server, it will generate the table. So what will happen, it will create the table. First it will drop, if it is a present, it will drop the table, and then it will create new table. So a table is created. You can go and check in our database, right click and refresh the object repository. You can see table is created, right? So now let me discuss on let me discuss about spring.jpa.hibernate.ddl auto. I want to explain in depth actually. So let me open one PDF file on a document I have created for you. I will share this document to you so you can read it. So spring.jpa.hibernate.ddl is called auto property is used to generate the table in database automatically. So JPA will generate the table automatically the moment you enable this property. So this property is having list of possible options. What are those? Create, create only, drop, validate, update, create drop, and none. So by default, whenever you are generating a Spring Boot application, by default, spring.jpa.hibernate.ddl auto property, by default, it is none. So what does it mean? So table will not generate actually. So I want to show that actually. So okay, now we'll go step by step. I will explain you each value how it is going to perform. Okay, so now let me show you. Go open the console. So as of now we have this table is generated, right? Employee table. I want to delete this now. How we can delete? Right click, more database operation, drop database. So I want to generate this sequence also. Now there is no table created in employee DB, right? So let me disable this property. So I'm disabling DDL auto property. So if you check the console, create table, you can see, if you see the console, create table SQL statement is not generated. So now go to your database and refresh the repository. So now you can see there is no table generated. Table is not there. What does it mean? So spring.jpa.hibernate.ddl and auto property by default it is disabled with the help of none, none. So by what is the default value for ddl auto property? None. So it will not generate the table by default. So if you want to create the table dynamically, what are all the entities are available in your project? If you want to create the table dynamically, so you have to enable this property by yourself. So how you can enable? By adding this property in application.properties. So now I will just clear the console and then enable it. Just save the file. So our application all restart automatically, right? So now you can see the moment you enable, table is created. So first what create value is doing, we'll discuss one by one. So create actually it creates the schema destroying previous data. What does it mean? It creates the schema destroying previous data. So let me show you that. So now table is generated, right? So you can see, go and check in our database. Just right click and refresh object browser and you can see table is created. Now I want to create the employee. Okay, so let me invoke our RESTful API. From where we can invoke? So let me open talent API. So create employee. So what is the API we have created to insert employee data? We have created in previous lecture, we have created create employee API, right? So I'm copying this employee API and then go to object, go to your REST line and then paste it here. And what is the HTTP request method to insert the data? HTTP request method should be post. And as part of the post request, we need to pass the input. So how you can determine what kind of input you have to pass? Go to your model object, so entity object, so employee, right? So here we have 1 2 3 4 5. So we have 5 properties here. So these 5 properties you need to pass if you want to insert the data, right? So let me send the request. So I have added already first name, last name, mobile number, email. So ID I am not passing. So let me pass that ID also. As of now, I want to pass the ID as well. So employee ID 1, I am going to send the request now. Open the console, clear the console. So you can watch what is happening in background after sending the request. I just send the request. You can check the response. See, you can see the response, right? So employee, we got the response. The employee is created in database. We got the success response. How you can decide? So we got 200 successful response, and also we got the JSON response, which is the employee who is inserted in database. So Sachin Tendulkar I have inserted in database. So now you can go to your SQL yoke, just refresh it. Okay, so now you can see, you can open the table, employee table. Right click on it and just click on open. So you can see employee is inserted. Employee 1 is inserted. Sachin Tendulkar is inserted successfully. So now we are talking about DDL auto value create. So employee is created now, right? So now what does it mean? What is the purpose of this create? It will create the schema and destroying the previous data. So now we have inserted the data, right? So if you stop the server, what will happen? Let's see. If you stop the server, this is Eclipse issue. No, you don't need to bother about it. The alert which is coming, you can ignore it, guys. So I just stopped the server. Okay. So now go to database, just refresh. You have one record and table, right? You have one record and table. So now I am going to start the server again. The server started, and you can see that create value is DDL auto value create is performing. If table is present, then it is first it will drop the table. Drop in the sense it will delete the table from the database, and then it will create a new table. So if you open your SQL yoke and just click on refresh button, you can see here. If you refresh, you can see there is no data available. If you observe, there is no data present. So what will happen? So if you DDL auto property, if you specify with the create value, so it will always delete that table, and it will create a new table. So whatever data present in the database, it will clear the data. So you will lost the data. So practically you saw, right? So earlier we have inserted one record. After that, I just started the server. The moment I started the server again, so it is dropping the existing table and then creating the new table. So what is happening here? So you lost the data which you have inserted. So uh, that is how create value will perform. Okay, so now let's talk about create only. So there is another feature, another value called create only as part of DDL auto property. So let me change create to create only. Now go back to your application.properties file. Let me clear the console, and application.properties. So create hyphen only. So I just clear the console, and now save. Just save that file. So server is started. You can see table employee already exists. So what does it mean? Create only in the sense what will happen? It will not delete the table from the database. So earlier this create value what is doing? If already inserted, what it is performing? It is deleting the table and creating the new table. So whereas create hyphen only value is performing, it is not deleting the table. It is checking. It is checking if it is table is present, it will not create. So now that's the reason it is showing the exception. You can see create table. So earlier we have created two times, right? So you can see create table. It is trying to create the table. what is happening, that this property is performing to try to create the table during the server startup. So that time it is throwing exception. What does that exception? So error executing DDL statement create table. So JPA is generated a create table statement, but it is throwing an exception. Why? Because employee table already exists. You can see table employee already exists. So that is how this create hyphen only value will perform the respective operation. It will not drop the database. So it will always try to create the table. This value always try to create the table in database. So now what is happening? So we already have the table in database. Earlier we have created the employee table, right? Generated by JPA with the help of create property. So since the employee table is available, it is throwing exception because employee table is already exist. So now what I will do, I will delete that table from the database again. Let me delete it. Bye guys, you have to learn in-depth concepts, okay? So you have to concentrate on, you have to concentrate carefully, okay? So now most of the people will ask you in interview. Okay, so now I have deleted this property, so table employee table. Now go to again go to your Eclipse, read only, right? So now I am going to stop the server and start the server. So whenever you start the server, so this property JPA will perform the database operation based on this property. So now let me start the server. What will happen, let's see. So before that, you can see there is no table available in our database. You can see there is no table available, right? So I just right click and refresh the object browser and check, there is no table available, right? So now what I will do, let me start the server. So you can see application property is having create only value. EDL auto property is having create only. Let me start the server. Maximize the console. You can see in background create table employees created successfully. So there is no exception in console, right? So why? Because in database earlier this employee table is not available. We can see employee table is not available. So this read only value will perform always try to create the table in database. Since there is no table available in our database, it is successfully able to JPA is successfully able to create the table in database. You can see employee table is created, right? So now you learn the difference. What is the use of create and create only? So create will what create will perform? So it will drop the database and it will create the new table. So whenever there is a already inserted data, you will lost the data. Okay, so create only, it will always create that, try to create the table. If table is not present, then it will create the new table. If it is table is present, then your JPA will throw exception saying that table is already exist. Now we'll see validate. So what validate will perform? You can see validate the schema makes no changes to the database. So it will not do any changes in database. This validate property value will not perform any database operation. Only it will just validate whether table is present or not. That's it. So let me check now. Validate what will perform. So go there, go to your application properties and just change it to, let me clear the console. And before that, so okay, let me it's not copied properly. So let me type validate. Now just save that file. So you can see So in console, there is no database operations, nothing is there. You can see there is no database operations, there is no SQL schema generated. Internally it will only check whether that table is present or not. So now what will happen, what will do now, I will delete this table. Okay, I have deleted the employer table. So you can refresh the object repository. So you can see in employee there is no table available. I have deleted it, right? So now let me stop the server and start the server. Server stopped successfully. And now, so now DDL auto is declared with validate value, right? So we are talking about third one, validate. So what validate will do, it will always validate the schema and makes no changes to the database. So let me start the server with that property, that value. Yes, successfully exception came. So you can see what validate is performing. It is trying to check whether employee table is present in database. You can see schema validation, missing table employee. So this validate always try to check the entities which are present in your project. So as of now we have only employee entity, right? As of now in our project we have only employee entity. So this validate method, whenever you declared with DDL auto validate, so what during the server startup, what it is checking, it is checking based on the what are all the entities which are defined in your project. It will check whether employee table present in database or not. So if you open in our object repository in SQL Yoke, you can see refresh. So there is no table available. So it is validated. So since there is no table, it is clearly throwing exception. There you can see uh, missing table, schema validation, missing table employee, it is throwing exception. You can see it is clearly throwing entity manager not able to create internally repository. Yesterday I told you, right? So and we are using JPA repository, right? So JPA repository internally uses entity manager only, entity manager factory. Okay, so now let me create the table. So how we can create the table, how can we avoid that exception? We just need to write create. That's it. So now let me start the server again. So after that I will change it to validate again. Now you can see table is created successfully. Because I have given create value as part of DDL property. I have given set employees created. So that is how a validate value will perform. Okay, so you got the right. It will always validate. This validate always validate the schema. Makes no changes in the database. It will not perform any data manipulation operations in database. It will always check the whether schema is present or not. Schema nothing but your table. Okay, so now next we'll talk about update value. So update, let's see what update will perform. So go back to your Eclipse and change the property DDL auto to update value. Now server is restarted. You can see there is no nothing. There is no SQL query generated. So what I will do, let me clear again. I will stop the server so that you can easily understand with update property. So I have DDL auto as given as update value, and then I'm starting the server. Before that you can check. So there is a already table is available. Right click and refresh object repository. There is table already available. So you can see there is no SQL statement generated, create statement or update, nothing. It is not generated anything. So what does that mean? You can see update the schema. It will always try to update the schema if any changes are available. So okay, so since table is already ready, so it is not creating any update statement. So now I want to check whether really this property is updating table or not. So how we can perform? Go to your employee entity. So here I want to add another property. So let's say I want to add another property, private uh, int integer age. I just added one property age. Okay. So now you can see there is a statement generated, alter table employee. So what is happening? There is a SQL statement is generated, alter table employee. Alter in the sense, so I have modified my entity. I have added a new column, right? Yeah, private integer age column I have added in entity class. So the moment application dot properties DDL auto specify with update value. So it will, what it will do, it will always update the employee table. If is there any before update, if is there any changes in your entity, so it will always update the those details in your database. Now go and check whether it is really updated or not. So before updating, you can see we have only ID, mobile number, email, and first name and last name, right? We have only 1 2 3 4 5 columns. We don't have age column. Now just refresh your table. You can see rightly here, you can see refresh button. I'm highlighting, there is a refresh button here. Just click on that. See, the moment you click on the refresh button, you can see age column is added into your existing table, right? So it is created SQL, it is generated SQL statement, alter table employee, and it is added the column integer. So alter SQL statement is generated. So what does it mean? Update DDL auto update, always update the schema. You got the point, right? So now let's talk about create drop. So and one more thing I want to show you, update. So sir, what will happen? So during the create value, it is removing the data also, right? So but update will not remove the data. So I want to prove that. So let me go to REST clients. So as of now, you don't have any data. You can see, just refresh the your table. There is no data available, right? So age getters and setters I have not added, but this will always insert with null values. Okay. So let me remove that age property and save that file. So server is restarted, and then I just clear the console and then check. You just refresh. See, it is not deleting anything. So it whenever you are adding new table, then it will just update existing table. It will always, whenever you are adding new property, it is trying to update only. So now what I will do, I will stop that. I will stop the server also. I stop the server, and then let me clear the console. So application.properties is having update value. Now I'm starting the server. Open the console. Now, yeah, server started successfully. There is no error in the console. Just refresh the table. So it will not creating the table, right? So what update is performing? It will always update your existing table if there are any updates present. What it will do, whenever you are adding any new columns in your entity, so it will just update that, add that new columns. You got the point, right? So it will not create that table. It will always update if is there any changes in your entity class. So now let me send the request. I'm trying to insert the employee. Yeah, employee is inserted successfully. You can see employee is inserted. So now go and check in your database. So one record is inserted, right? So age is null because age getters and setters I have not created and age property I have removed, so that's the reason it is having null. So you just concentrate on a concept. So now I have added a new record in database, right? So now stop the server. So you can see in background select query is generated, select query where id. So now inserted. So earlier we have inserted the data, right? So by once we inserted the data in background, jpi is created the insert query. So this is belongs to that one. So previously we have inserted the data, right? So background jpi is created insert statement. So now what I'm trying to do, we are going to check update value, ddl auto value. So I stop the server. So before that, you can see we have a data available in our table. I just stop the server with ddl auto value update. So now start the server. So why I am doing this? So you can confirm that update will not perform any it will not delete the data from the database. So you can see Tomcat server started successfully. Now go to your object SQL client. So let's just refresh. See, you did not lose the data. So your data remains the same. So you got the point, right? So update, always update the schema. It will not remove the data and it will not remove the table. It will always try to update the existing table if is there any changes available. Okay. So now let's talk about create type and drop. So what does it mean? The database schema will be dropped and created. So this will do, it will drop and create again. So let me, so actually in background, it will happen. There is a SQL session factory is there. So SQL session factory, if it is terminated by the session, so that time what will happen? So your existing table will be deleted. So what that is the meaning of this create hyphen dropped. That will happen internally. So now the database schema will be dropped and created. So now let me stop the server and we'll check that future as well. So let me change the value as instead of update create hyphen drop. Okay, so now start the server again. See, you can see SQL statement is generated. It is drop table if exist and then create the new table. Now you got the point, right? So now earlier we have a data in the database. Now if I refresh the object repository, so now you can see the table just a refresh. See, you lost the data. So that is the meaning of create drop. So none in the sense. So now let me stop the server again and clear the console. I am declaring DDLF on auto as none. So before none, I want to delete actually. So you can check, right, whether table is created or not. So I want to delete the table. So you no need to delete. Just give that. Just start the server. Just start the server. So none in the sense it will not delete the table from the database. So now refresh. Still your table is available, right? So let me drop. If you declare it as a drop, your table will be deleted from the database. You can see. So now let me check whether it is. I think let me right click and refresh object repository. So you can see there is no table available. You can see, right? So right click and refresh. So there is no table available because I have given DDL property as drop. So now I am going to give it as none. I want to test this none in the means. So see, server is restarted again. So you can see it will, the moment you specify none, by default ddl auto statement value will be none only. So even if you declare manually, so open your sql yog, right click and refresh the object browser, and then check, there is no table created. So the moment you declare your ddl auto as none, your table is not going to create in database. This is the property this is the value by default. ddl auto will be the default. What is the default value of ddl auto? None. So you have got right. So what are each and every value, you got to know each and every value, what all the operations it is performing in database. So that is the main importance of ddl hyphen auto. So if you think, if you discuss generally in real time environment, so no one will use this property actually. So because in production generally this property is not going to use, because you will have hundreds of tables in a real time environment actually. So if you perform, if you enable this by mistake, if you enable any operation with this property, your production data or your database data, whichever is there, it will create some problem, right? So generally in production environment, this is not going to use. So only based on your requirement, then only they will use it. Very rare actually. So this most of the people, this property is used by there is some auto generation tools are there in market actually. So you can generate the code dynamically, right? Auto generated tools are there in market. Auto code generation tools are there. So those kind of tools only is going to use these properties. Okay. So you just need to have some knowledge on these properties, because some people will have whenever you are attending interviews, so many people will ask what your ddl auto will perform, and can you explain me each and every value, so that you can easily answer now, right? So and also we have learned another property. What is the meaning of this property? So whatever sql statements generated by jpa, so you can format that sql in the console. You can, that will be in your generated sql will be readable format. Okay guys, so now let me get into jpa rest api. Let me talk about rest api now. So now we are going to insert the data, right? So let me create the table. Okay. So as of now, I will give update property. Now we are going to test our application, whatever APIs we have created with JPA and repository. Update. So I am giving it as a update. So what update will do? Update always create the table in database. So since there is no table in database, it is created. So now go and open and check, there is a table available, right? So now refresh the object border. As of now, there is no data. So let me insert the data. So now what will happen? So there is a one id, I am giving it as a id, employee id 1 I am trying to insert. Let me insert the employee 1. So employee is inserted successfully, we got successful response. Then you can go and check your sql table. See, record is inserted. So now I don't want to send this ID. I don't want to send this ID. Okay, what it will happen? Let's see now. So next time I'm deleting this ID and sending the request. Check the response. See, we got internal server error. So the moment you did not send that ID, ID is a primary key in database table, right? So you can see open and table. So this is a primary key. ID is a primary key. How do you know it is a primary key? We have declared in employee table entity, we have declared our ID as a at the rate ID. The moment you declared your property as the property which at the rate ID, so this will become your primary key of your table, right? So now what I'm trying to do, without id I am trying to insert the data. Without id primary key I am trying to insert the data. So jpa is throwing exception now. What is the exception? It is clearly send the response also. You can read it. So if you go right hand side, see, very big exception. So let me copy this message, the response message. So I want to show you in detail. Open the notepad plus plus, paste. So it is clearly saying, see, id for this class must be manually assigned. So what it is trying to do in background, it is trying to insert the data. How it is trying to insert the data? See, jpa system throws exception. jpa system throws exception while executing this save method. It is the save method is thrown exception because, yeah, your primary key id, you are not passing your primary key id. So ids for this class must be manually assigned because primary key will be not null field in database. So primary key is mandatory to send the request, right? So now again, so here whatever in console exception, right? Same exception you can see here. Okay, so the response which we got, the same response we got from the server. So now what I will do, I will clear the console, and then this time I will try to create the table again. So I will pass that id, primary key id. So, oh, this is post request, right? So let me 404 post request, and now you can see. So now without id, once you send the request, you got the internal error because it is expecting primary key. So now I will add that id and I will pass one. Now one or two. So let me open the database. How many records are there? As of now, already one already present. So now if you send the request, we'll see now what will happen. Let me clear the console. Send the request. Check the console. Select query is only generated. It is not inserted. It is not updated because there is no changes in database. Save method will perform update operation as well. Okay. So now let me send it to, if I employee number two, if I send, then data, your data is being inserted. You can see insert into because there is a primary key change. So it is inserted new record in database. So what does it mean? So if you go to your repository, jpa repository, this save method will perform. Let me come down. So we are trying to insert the record, right? So go to your repository class, open your employee repository, and employees, let me open control shift r, employee repository.java. So implementation where we have created service class. Sorry, here in service class, service implementation class, we are saving the employee, right? You can see we are saving the employees. This red color is came because there is exception, right? So save method is whenever you are trying to insert same record. For example, open the database table and refresh. So now we have two records, right? Two records we have. So let me send same request. So employee 2 is having Sachin Tendulkar and mobile number and Sachin. So if you open the database, same data is there. Sachin at gmail.com, Sachin Tendulkar and employee number. So let me clear the console. Now I want to show you save method will do update operations. If we send, so nothing is generated in the console. You can see only select query. So it is not updated and created. So whenever there is no changes available, save method always will perform update operation. So now let me change the value. So employee number 2, I want to change Sachin 1. Okay, you can see in database record employee number 2. What is the first name? Sachin, right? So now I just wanted to change it as a Sachin 1. So and I am sending employee number 2, send the request. So if you come down, so we got success response. So see, it is updated. So same record we are still creating. So what does it mean? This save method will perform insert or update operation. If table is present, it will try to update. If table is not present, it will insert new record. Got it, sorry, got it right. If record already present in database, it will update that record. If record is not present, then it will insert new record. So save method will perform two operations. Save method is available as part of repository, class. So this is the JPA repository. Go inside that. So it will have lot of methods: save and save all and delete. So lot of methods are there. So those method find one, find by ID. So save method will perform insert the data or updating the data. Okay, so now here we're talking about primary key, right? So now I want to generate this primary key. I don't want to send that primary key every time. So let me remove and send the request. So what is happening? It is throwing exception. So I want to generate this ID by JPA. I want to generate this ID by JPA. I don't want to generate this ID. So what will happen? I don't want to send as part of request as well. So without ID, if you send, we are getting exception, because since primary ID is a primary key, so without primary key value, we can't insert the data. So that's the reason we got the 500. Now that ID I want to auto generate. How we can auto generate? So in employee table, there is a annotation called generated value. Jakarta API. You can see Jakarta persistence. So it has generated value. You can check the description also. Provides specification of generation strategies values for primary keys. You can see here, provides the specification of generation strategies for the values of primary key. So now I have declared it as a ID, right? So you can see the generated value annotation may be applied to a primary key property or field of entity, right? So now it will generate the value. So now what I will do, let me send the request now. Now I will not pass ID. So let me open and refresh. So currently we have two records. Currently we have two records. Now I am going to send the record, send the request without ID, primary key. You can see why could not execute statement duplicate entry. Yeah, so why? Because so we already having 1 and 2, right? It is trying to insert again 1 and 2 by default, because we have enabled at the rate generated value, right? So now what I will do, I will, as of now, I will delete this table. Both the records I will delete to testing purpose. So I have deleted the record from the database. Now there is no records available. Clear the console. And now I am not passing the ID. Now before sending the request, I am not passing the primary key. Now send the request. See, you got the success response. 2 is generated. So now go there. That primary key is inserted by generated value, JPA, right? We have specified with at the rate generated value. So we no need to bother about primary keys. Hibernate will generate primary keys for us. Okay, so now let me send one more request with the same data without passing ID. If you say 1, 2, 3, 4, I send many requests. Now go and open your database. See, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is generate. It is inserting new record. If you did not send the primary key while sending the request, if you did not send the primary key, it will always insert the new record in database, and that primary key is generated by JPA. Okay, so it has many strategies actually. So now what I will do, I will stop the server. We'll see what will happen. I will stop the server, and what is the property? Update. So update in the sense we are not going to lose the data if you restart the server. So how many records are there now? As of now, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So till 6 records we have, right? So now 5. So 5 records we have. So sixth record you can see we have only last record is sixth record. So now let me start the server. What the generated value will do. Now you can get to know what is generated value will perform. So now our server is started successfully and restarted successfully. So now what is the last primary key? 6. Now I'm trying to insert the data without primary key again. I just send the request. So we got the success response. You can see ID is generated 52. You have to observe, guys, you have to understand the concept. See, it is generated 52, not 7. There is no sequential order. So what does it mean? At the rate generated value internally uses auto strategy type. So there is a set of strategies type in hibernate. So the generated value, there is a auto generation type, primary key generation type, there is a auto property. So if you don't specify any strategy as part of generated value, so whenever you restart the server, so the primary key will not in sequential order, so it will auto generate. It will auto generate. See, now it is 52, right? So now if I stop the server, it will auto generate. So you cannot uh, rely on that. So what kind of primary key it is going to generate in database? I stop the server again. So let me start the server. These are all in-depth concept you have to learn, guys. If you learn, it is very good actually. Okay, I am teaching you in very in-depth. So now uh, go to your database. So how many records you have? So 52 primary key. Employee 52 is available in database. Now I just restarted the server. Now I want to insert one more record. So let me insert the record again. So again record is inserted. If you observe, see what is the ID now? 102. So you cannot rely on the primary key which is generated. It is not generating in sequential order, because generate at the rate generated value by default, if you not provide any strategy to that generated value, it will always generate random number whenever your server restarted. So next time again if you try, it will generate another number. So this is how auto generate will work. Auto strategy type. So it how many types it has? So let me open the documents. I will share this document, guys. You can go through it. So here I will explain you tomorrow remaining what is the meaning of auto and table, sequential, and identity. You can see why at the rate generated value I have clearly mentioned here. We are talking about at the rate generated value. So what does it mean? By making the ID field with generation value, we are now enabling ID generation. So which means that persistence layer will generate an ID value for us and handle the auto increment. So we no need to send the along with whenever you are trying to insert the employee, you no need to pass primary key. So employee number you no need to pass, it will auto generate with the help of at the rate generated annotation. So next, so the primary key value, by default this at the rate generated value, what is the strategy type? By default it will be auto. What is the default one? This one is the default one actually, default. So our application can choose one of 5 generation strategies. What are those? Auto, table, sequence, identity, and UID. So if you strategy value, if you type open bracket and close bracket, just control space. Put cursor inside that, put on control space. You can see generation. There is a strategy. Strategy attribute is available. Just click on that strategy. After that, again control space. If you see set of available, how many strategies are there? Auto, identity, sequence, table, UUID. total five number of strategies types are there. So those five numbers I have specified in the documents. So I will explain you this five strategies tomorrow, guys. Okay, so make sure you are learning all the concept in depth, guys. From here, each and every class will be most important and it will be interesting also if you concentrate every day. Okay, so I will explain you tomorrow, guys. Remaining strategy types. Thank you, guys. We'll connect tomorrow. I will share you this document. Okay.